Okay, no time for any fancy editing on this one. We've just got race footage and I'm going to talk you through the race. This is a 5k in the London Olympic Park, so the Olympic Stadium is there on our right. You can also see, just coming into view there, the shield of West Ham United, the badge. This is where West Ham play their home games. So I managed to find a race on Wednesday night in central London. You can see the West Ham badge just there on the right and on the left actually, and there's the store for anyone who wants to buy some shirts. Unfortunately it was closed, but this was a 5 and 10k race that was around the Olympic Stadium. So I ended up doing the 5k because I'd done a 10k a few days before and I wanted to just give myself a bit of a blast out midweek. And so there were a ton of people doing this event. I joined up last minute, but there were loads and loads of people who were running. And it was 2 laps basically around the stadium with a little bit added on. So each lap was obviously 2.5 kilometers long. And the idea was to just get a good blast out. Now I did something slightly different in this one. I had my watch on, but I had it only to time elapsed, and so at no stage did I know how fast I was going or what pace I was doing. All I knew was how long I had been running for, and I did that deliberately because I wanted to run by effort and I wanted to run by feel, and I had a good result, as you'll see in a minute, and I really enjoyed racing. I enjoyed feeling relaxed and I enjoyed feeling good. So as you can see, someone went off ahead of me and I assumed he was doing the 5k, but it turns out the guy ahead of me here was doing the 10k. I didn't know it at any stage, even when I crossed the finish line. As you'll see later on, I thought I'd finished second, but in fact I went on to win the race. It's quite exciting, but this guy I thought was the leader overall, but he wasn't. He was doing the 10k, so we're actually doing 2 separate races. They started at exactly the same time. My pace is pretty much spot on where I wanted to be here, but of course I didn't know that at the time. I was just running by effort, and at this point I was just trying to stay relaxed and trying to make sure that I wasn't working too hard. It was super fun running around the Olympic Park, and you can see that crazy tower just to the right of the leader there. I think they call that the orbit, and that was I really liked, that was where the start was and the finish was, and I really liked running in the shadow of that. That was something to keep looking at throughout the whole race. So we had a sharp left turn here, and I could see that the leader, as I thought he was, the leader of the 10k as it turned out, wasn't getting away from me. So I thought if I just keep him within striking distance, then hopefully that's something that I can work off, and just was focused at this point in making sure that I was feeling relaxed and feeling relatively focused on not letting him get too far ahead if I could. This was a course with quite a few turns, as you'll see, and I didn't really know where we were headed at this point. I didn't have the opportunity to jog this part of the lap first, but we had a slight, it felt like an uphill anyway. It says it's 0 or -1%, but it definitely felt like a bit of an uphill here, particularly over this bridge. And then when we swung round on the other side, it felt much more relaxed and felt like we were going downhill, and we had a bit of a stretch which we hit round about here on the course, where we had a long straight bit for about sort of 400 or 500 meters, and it felt slightly downhill. The wind wasn't against us. I think it was coming as a crosswind at this point, but this was one where I really felt relaxed and felt like I could work and not worry particularly about the pace. You can see I'd just gone through a mile here and I didn't realize it because of course I didn't have my watch set up so that I could see how fast I was going or when I was hitting certain landmarks. But I went through the first mile in 5:05. So remember that, I went through the first mile in 5:05, which was my fastest mile by far. Now, had I ordinarily gone through the first mile that fast, I would have been really worried that I'd gone off too hard. And in fact, spoiler alert, my next mile was 5:19. So I think if I had been looking at those splits, I could easily have...
Yes, skinny bones!
Did you hear that guy? I think he called me Skinny Bones or Skin and Bones. I'll take it. But as I was saying, if I'd seen my watch during the race and I'd seen that I'd run 5:05 for the first mile and then 5:19 for the second mile, I think I could easily have been really demoralised and not achieved what I wanted to achieve, because I would have thought that I was then going to run 5:30 for the next mile. I didn't run 5:30 for the next mile, and you'll see that in fact I picked the pace up in the third mile because I had some competition. We just went over a gravelly bit, and that was a really tough corner to negotiate, but I knew we were coming up to the second lap here, and so once we get round this corner we'll see the finish line. And I knew I'd checked this out before the start of the race because I wanted to know exactly where the finish was in comparison to the last corner, and I'm glad that I did that for obvious reasons, which you'll see in a minute. So there is exactly halfway, and I checked my watch and it said 7:58, and so I knew that I was running really well, and I knew that if I carried on at this pace I would actually dip under 16 minutes. So I was quite excited by the prospect of dipping under 16 minutes there. So at this point the leader was out of sight. He was pulling away and I could see him every now and then, but he definitely, between that sort of halfway mark and this point, so between sort of 2.5 and maybe 3k, he got away from me, and there was not much I could do about that. Now, like I say, I didn't know at this stage that he was doing the 10k, so I thought I was settling in for second place in the 5k. But round about now, I started to hear some footsteps behind me, and the guy who catches up in a minute was making a ton of noise in his Alpha Flies, I'm not going to lie. He was obviously relatively heavy-footed, and with his Alpha Flies on, he made an absolute racket. So I heard him coming from a mile off, which was fine. But yeah, with about 2k to go, he caught me up, and I knew I was in for a battle at that point. So as you can see, we just passed mile 2 on the course. Now, when I was running this, I didn't know that we had done the 2 mile mark. I had no clue how far into the race I was, other than in terms of time. And I certainly didn't know that my second mile was significantly slower than my first. But the advantage that I had for the third mile was not only was it the last mile, which made things easier because you can always pick it up in the last mile, but I had this guy who was right on me, and you'll see in a minute that he actually overtakes me and really pushes me on right to the end. So at this point I knew the race was on. I knew that I had about a kilometre to go, and I knew I had this long, slightly downhill stretch that I had really enjoyed the previous time. So my plan really was to try and stay with this guy, not let him get away, and see how long I could stick with him for. Again, I didn't realise that this was the race for the win. I thought this was the race for second place, but it turns out that the two of us were racing for the win in the 5k. So I just wanted to stick with him for as long as I could.
You've done magic.
I wanted to keep that guy's comment in because he had a loudspeaker and he said we'd done magic. So I thought that was really nice of him. Now, as you can see, my colleague here, who is racing against me in the Alpha Flies, he got away down that stretch, and we were weaving in and out of traffic a little bit. We're sort of lapping people here, and I think a lot of these are doing the 10k, to be fair, and he was just getting away from me, but I wanted to keep him in striking distance, and I felt like I was. It got a bit crazy here. I had to do a bit of "please get out of the way" shouting. But he got a little bit lost in the crowd, and at this point, I'm not going to lie, I thought he'd got away from me. I thought that with about 400 meters to go, probably a little bit less, that he had enough of a gap to win this. I did know, however, that this next bit was uphill, and I do enjoy uphills, and I could see straight away on this bridge that he wasn't enjoying the uphills as much as I was. So we came around this corner, and I really couldn't get any traction on this corner, and I nearly went in the bushes because it was on gravel, and I was trying to corner it too fast, so I nearly hit the bushes. But it was about this point I knew I was going to get him. I could see him struggling up the hill. I knew he wasn't getting away, and I knew that I had to get him before the corner because there's not much time after the corner. So I sneaked in on the inside here, and I was expecting him to have a bit more of a finish. But I just put my head down and I went, and we crossed the line, boom, first place. Now again, I thought I was second at this point, but I got a medal there from that lady who called me young man, so I'm very happy with her. And it said first place on it, and the announcer was saying first place. So what is the time? 16:01. That was the chip time. That is the fastest 5k I have run in a very long time. Slightly disappointed it wasn't 15:59, which sounds like a minute faster, but overall massively happy with the result, and that is the fastest 5k I've done in a long time, and I'll give you a proper and full debrief once I've had a chance to edit a video. So thanks for watching.
So that's the camera. What have we got here?
And I've got to say, happy days.